Thank you for listening to this worship podcast of St. Andrew Lutheran Church. We hope this recording provides you with a moment of God's grace wherever this finds you. Know that you're welcome to join us in person for worship in Eden Prairie on Sunday mornings at 9 or 10:30. And also know that any contribution you make will bolster St. Andrew's ministry and outreach, including our podcasting directly to you. You can do so online. Welcome and God's blessings to you.
Our reading today is from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 2. In the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem asking, "Where is the child who has been born King of the Jews? For we observed his star in the east and have come to pay homage." When King Herod heard this, he was frightened, and all Jerusalem with him. And calling together all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born. They told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it has been written by the prophet. And you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means the least among the rulers of Judah, for from you shall come a ruler who is to shepherd my people, Israel." Then Herod secretly called for the Magi and learned from them the exact time when the star had appeared. Then he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word so that I may also go and pay homage." When they had heard the king, they set out, and there ahead of them went the star that they had seen in the east until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw that the star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. On entering the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they knelt down and paid him homage. Then, opening their treasure chest, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left for their own country by another road. Now, after they left, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, "Get up, take the child and his mother and flee to Egypt, and remain there until I tell you, for Herod is about to search for the child to destroy him." Then Joseph got up, took the child and his mother by night, and went to Egypt and remained there until the death of Herod. This was to fulfill what had been spoken by the Lord through the prophet, "Out of Egypt I have called my son." The word of the Lord.
Merry Christmas. Welcome back here to worship as we continue at St. Andrew and as a part of the broader church to commemorate the 12 days of Christmas, continuing on through the readings that Pastor Kristen read for us as our story indeed continues. And I do think there's also a little bit of waning that happens out there in our culture when it comes to the 4th of January, all the build up to Christmas and Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, the events, activities, and then the gradual movement then into the new year. I think I saw it on the faces of people in Shields yesterday when they walked in and saw how long the return line was. I was in that line yesterday. It only took about 5 minutes, no problem. I hear it on the voice of my wife, Michelle, when she says, "I have had and we have had all of these cookies and chocolates." How much is too much here over the course of a holiday? We come to the point in Christmas time when we move and we merge and we need to get ourselves into the new year, don't we? Yet also in the Christmas time, when we gather here for these 12 days of Christmas, we're invited to hold on to it just a little bit longer. Because there's a lot of rich meaning that we can squeeze still out of the Christmas story. And we continue to do so here on this Sunday that we call Epiphany Sunday, a broader church word about the light that shines out over Bethlehem and attracts the Magi to Bethlehem. but there's so much from which we can glean here from it. So let's together one more day hold on to Christmas here together and see what we might gain for our life of faith here together. One of the things that I want you to think about here as I preach my sermon here today is if you were here on Christmas Eve, I preached and we led a service to announce that love is here. And today I want you to think about love is there. Love is here on Christmas Eve, but love is there. Because I love in the story of the Epiphany how the broader Christmas story comes into play from the multiple places that is part of what God is doing in the world, not just in that oh little town of Bethlehem. We have the three or these wise magi, 3, 2, 6, 12. We have no idea how many there are, just that they brought three gifts to Jesus in Bethlehem. They are learned scholars, they are astrologers, and they are from Persia and Babylon, way out east. Again, ask yourself the question, where is love? They traveled to Bethlehem, as we have been reading here in our passages here today, and so much of our story of Christmas and the birth of Jesus has already been covered. And then I also love how, in the broadest of the Christmas story, how we go from the Magi to east through the Holy Land into Bethlehem. And now we have a movement that takes us into the country of Egypt. Out of Bethlehem, away from all that was happening to Jesus and the Holy Family. King Herod is there. He is threatened. He is worried. He is about to commit atrocities above all atrocities. Get out is the warning to the Holy Family. Make your way and extend the Christmas story more widely and beyond this. Again, keep remembering the theme, love is there. I frankly added the last few verses to our gospel reading here today to make sure that you knew that love was making its way more broadly. It's not usually part of the Epiphany reading. But I also added it because, as you may know me from before, I'm not quite, but I almost could be a dual passport holder to Egypt, right? I have spent 2 chapters of my life, 5 years and 4 years, at different stages of my life living in Egypt. And as they say in Egypt, if you drink from the Nile, you will return. Or, in other words, if you experience the hospitality and the warmth of the Egyptian culture, it will never leave you, in other words. And I find that most certainly true. And I love to talk about how when the pyramids of Giza that you see in your minds, the photographs, of Giza, those 3 great pyramids, how they were 2,400 years old when Jesus saw them himself with Mary and Joseph. It's an astounding place to live and an astounding history. But just down the street from our home, just a short car ride down to the road by the Nile River that's called the Corniche. There is a monastery called the Monastery of the Virgin Mary. It's a Coptic monastery, Coptic meaning Coptic. This is the Eastern Orthodox tradition. It's a Coptic monastery. They're founded, we don't know when, many centuries ago, but it's the spot where the Holy Family, having left Bethlehem for fear and being told that Herod is about to rampage, that they should go to Egypt, and they crossed the Nile there in Mahdi, in our community, for the first time, or as Egyptians, Christians commemorate. Now, most of the time along the highway there, you kind of miss this little monastery because it's one among other places. But it is a pilgrimage site that Christians visit while you are there. But there are 2 really wonderful stories that relate to this passage that I'll add on to the broader Christmas story. As Mary and Joseph and Jesus had made their way from Bethlehem and arrived at the shore of the Nile River, they had no way to cross it. My Egyptian friends love to tell a story about a kind man who operated a ferry. And this man appeared before Mary and Joseph and Jesus and stopped his boat and welcomed Mary and Joseph and the baby Jesus into the boat so that they might cross onto the other side of the Nile to continue their journey. There is nothing miraculous about this story from Coptic lore, Coptic Christian lore, and in their story of the people, nothing like an angelic voice that appeared. It simply is an understanding that God's provision arrived at the precise moment when it was needed, a quiet sign of love to Mary, Joseph, and Jesus. And again, remember, love was there in this act here of this ferryman who had this boat, who brought it over there, the Nile River. I also love the story too that they tell at the monastery. And this was just something that happened in the 20th century, early in the 20th century, but how there was a Bible that was floating down the Nile, and it lodged on the shore right at the monastery of the Virgin Mary there in Mahdi, right where is commemorated that Jesus and Mary and Joseph crossed the river for the first time. And the Bible lodged there on the steps, right there at the monastery leading into the Nile River. And it was open to Isaiah chapter 19:25, which talks about how Egypt is blessed among nations. From the water to the words to the story of this Bible floating, Coptic Christians are amazed by these kinds of stories about the reminders of all that that entails. So let me interpret this for you just a little bit as well, both of these stories. First of all, one of the things that I've long appreciated about my Egyptian friends is that this story of Mary and Joseph and Jesus coming from a place of threat to this place of Egypt that is their home by heritage is a shared story by all Egyptians. It is absolutely something that the Coptic Christian community and the evangelical Christian community share. They kind of pump their chests a little bit and say, look at what we have contributed here to the life of the Holy Family and of Christianity. So it's something that the Christians really relate to. But it's also something, too, that the Muslim community in Egypt, that numbers 90% of the people of Egypt, also highly, highly value and are grateful for this story. Because they see Jesus or Isa, they see Mary or Miriam in Arabic with great high regard. And that this Egyptian hospitality and welcome and providing of safety to a group of a small family who were refugees spoke really loudly to not just the Christian community, but the Muslim community as well. It's sort of the shared understanding of the shared history that makes Egypt as powerful as it is. 10% of the population is Christians, but the number of Christians in Egypt is more than the number of Christians in the entire Middle East combined. And they have a very, very strong sense of hospitality and safety, no matter what creed one might be following. And that Mary and Joseph and Jesus were given hospitality and safety is shared. Love is there, is my point. The other interpretation that I'll make about these two stories as well is this Bible that floated down to the monastery and got hung up there among the reeds. Open to book of Isaiah, chapter 19, 25. Egypt is a blessed nation. And I'm reminded as I think back to my own understanding of biblical history, and you do as well, about how just a millennia prior to this, it was the Egyptian community, the Egyptian people, who were the ones who were oppressing the children of Israel. Do you remember? Bondage into slavery centuries ago, bricks that were made without straw so that they were harder and heavier and more demanding, forced labor that the children of Israel had to deal with under the Egyptian rule, loss of the ability to worship and to be faithful people as well in the land of Egypt. And yet here we are, 1,000 years later. This same community of Egypt is saying to Mary, Joseph, and Jesus, come in for the sake of hospitality and of welcome and safety. Come in and be part of this safe place together. So, in other words, there's no judging a nation based on its past when it turns and shifts gears like this. I mean, how many of us would want to be remembered, friends, for our very worst chapters? There may be chapters that we are trying to forget. Maybe there are chapters that we can't forget, ones that people remember and remind us of. But how often do we need to be given the permission to start a new chapter and to find a new way forward and to not let those old things be a burden but just let them be a burden of the past to remember, but to pull forward with hope, with peace, and with reconciliation. Love is here in this Isaiah passage when it says in Isaiah, foreshadowing all that Egypt also would become, that Egypt is blessed among nations. This is another thing that God is doing in the midst of this greater epiphany of story. That God is, the broad Christmas story is itself playing out. So later on, when Jesus would get a little bit older, he would spend a lot of time traveling through Samaria. Samaria, this place that was not related to the Jewish tradition at all. They had their own holy mountain, their own holy books, their own holy rites and rituals. But there was a woman at the well. There was the Samaritan who knew what it was like to care for someone in need beside the road to Jericho. There were the 10 lepers, and the one who returned to Jesus to give thanks was a Samaritan man, not those who were considered part of things. Jesus was expanding what it means to know where love is. Jesus went up to Tyre and Sidon, other places up along the Lebanese coast today, Gentile territory. Jesus spent time in the Decapolis, another geographical term as I go geography here today with you. A woman, the Gerasene demonic, the Syrophoenician woman, all of these miracle stories where Jesus can't help himself, but Jesus is going above and beyond that which is ordinarily known so that people might say here in 2026, love is there. Love indeed is there. Because God keeps going. God keeps making it known. God keeps on keeping on. And so I wonder as we gather here this first Sunday of this new year in 2026, I wonder how hard it might be for us to wonder and to see that love is there. What are the things that stop or hinder us from wondering and realizing and knowing that love is there in that place, over there, in that community that's maybe not here, but it's just over there? And how much of a place of joy and a place of peace it would be for us to understand that the light of the Epiphany, the star that shines, is meant to be cosmic. It's meant to shine brightly, not so much in these tangible ways that we can hold on to them, but that we can see that God is moving and acting and engaging all in the world so that love is not just here, as we said on Christmas Eve, but that love might also be there. And so in that intangible, in that wonder and in that awe, that the Magi engaged in following of this light, that we enter into the same process here of wondering in our hearts and in our minds, how in the world, or rather, how marvelous it is that the love of God that the grace of God, that the peace of God exists in so many places that we call there. May the Epiphany light shine here at St. Andrew as we move into our 50th year of ministry here in Eden Prairie and beyond. And may we as people of faith continue to see that love isn't just here, but it's also there and everywhere. May God lead and guide. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you for listening to this worship podcast of St. Andrew Lutheran Church. We hope that this recording provides you with a moment of God's grace wherever this finds you. Any contribution you make to St. Andrew will bolster our ministry and outreach, including our podcasting directly to you. You can do so online. Thank you for joining us for this podcast, and I wish you every blessing from Christ today.